You entrepreneurs, and welcome to the Possibility Partners Show. I'm your host, Andy Lyons, your Chief Possibility Officer, and every Tuesday at 1 p.m. Eastern, right here on Google Plus Hangouts and Air, you'll find me sharing Andelicious advice for entrepreneurial adventurers. And these are wonderful conversations with experienced entrepreneurs sharing their best tips, tools, and advice to help you and your business grow and thrive. Because whether you're a solopreneur or a business owner with 100 employees, the role of CEO and business owner can be very lonely and isolating. So I am deeply honored and thrilled that you've chosen to watch the Possibility Partners Show live or via replay to find some, courage, tenacity, resilience, and hope, whatever it is that you need at this point in your entrepreneurial adventure to help you stay focused, stay strong, and moving forward. I like to think that we're all here cheering each other on, celebrating our woohoos and our rut-rows. In fact, I'll be the first to pop the cork for a good rut-row. So, I have had plenty of fallen down moments with my businesses, so I understand how hard it can be. I'd love for you to stay in touch. Social media, subscribe to my YouTube channel, Andelicious Advice. Hop on over to my website, andylyons.com. I really do care deeply how you're doing with your business, and I do want to cheer you on and celebrate with you. Today, oh my gosh, we have a phenomenal guest joining us today. Former FBI agent, mental toughness specialist, and oh so delicious and tenacious, LaRae Quy. Hey, LaRae, say hi to everybody.
It's so good to be with you, Andy. I have been looking forward to this for so long.
I have too. Yeah, I met LaRae, at my favorite bar, Twitter. She was serving up drinks on leadership. I'm sure that's where it was, either with Lolly Daskell or Lead with Giants. I found her and I just fell in love with her about 3 years ago. And every word she spoke, I was just glued to. So I'm so thrilled you're here today, LaRae. But before we get talking about that oh so necessary ingredient to the entrepreneurial journey, mental toughness, let's chat about your background. Oh my gosh, what's a nice gal from like you going to work for the FBI? How did that all happen? Share with everybody.
Well, thank you for asking. I graduated from Arizona State, and I love to shop like a lot of women. I just thought, hey, a job in the fashion world would be perfect for me. So I signed on. I got hired as a department manager and then worked my way up to a buyer in this, fairly nice department store. But I hated my job. And I realized it was going to take a lot more than just a love of shoes to make a career out of something like this, right? And I just, my job, I just didn't feel it had any value or meaning to me. So I went back to get my master's degree, and the FBI came on campus, and they were interviewing. And I thought, well, why not? And lo and behold, I was hired. So I ended up at the FBI Academy, which is in Quantico, Virginia. And I'll never forget the first day. We all stood up and introduced ourselves. And so, the guy in front of me had been this prosecutor against a tough mob family in New York. The guy over here had been with Special Forces in North Africa. And then the guy over here had been a New Jersey state trooper that had survived a lot of shootouts. And so then I stood up and said that I was a buyer at some fancy retail store. And everybody just turned to get a look at the fluff ball that had accidentally gotten into the FBI Academy. So that was my introduction.
Oh my gosh. Listen, what they didn't know was the tenacity and courage it takes to get the right pair of shoes, especially on sale, for crying out loud.
Absolutely.
So then what happened? So there you stood up and they looked at the fluff ball, and then?
Well, and then I went through about 4.5 months of training there at the Academy. And it's on the U.S. Marine Corps base at Quantico. So, it's sort of paramilitary setup. And we basically trained in 3 different areas. One was physical fitness, the other was law, so we would know why we were out there doing what we were doing, and then the third was firearms. So for me, by far, the most difficult was the physical fitness. Most of the guys in my class were really buff and they had worked out, and I just hadn't. I just am not that much of an athlete. I had never really, been in sports, and so, and of all of the things we had to do, it was the push-ups that were the most difficult for me. So I had a tough time getting through the academy, and because of that, because of the difficulty I had with push-ups, at the interim fit test, the coach was the one to count my push-ups. And I got to the 9th one, and he just wouldn't count it. I mean, he just said, it's not good enough. You've got to go down to the floor. And he kept counting that 9th push-up. I mean, he must have counted like 9 times before he actually even counted it as a push-up. And all the time I'm thinking, I don't have any energy left. I'll never make the 50 that I had to actually accomplish. And I did fail that test. I failed it by 1 point, and I suffered the real possibility of getting washed out of the academy.
Oh my gosh, I mean, talk about getting feedback that doesn't make you feel good about yourself. What did you, like, how did you tune into something about who you are? Because they saw something in you, LaRae, to bring you on. You met some major requirement of theirs. It didn't necessarily have to be physical. So how did you turn that practically a no into a yes?
Now I can look back and I can see that the academy was as much about building mental toughness as it was about training us with the skills we would need to shoot or investigate or defend ourselves. At that point of which I failed the test, and it was just a great lesson of humiliation, because I didn't know if I was going to get washed out. And also, I go back to that failure as one of the most important failures of my life, and also being responsible for most of the successes I've had in life. Because at that point, I had to decide what I really wanted. I had to decide. And I had to train hard, and I had to dig deep in order to keep going. The perseverance, the determination, the resilience that I would need for the rest of my life. But I knew that this was the job I wanted. And I had been in a job that just gave me no value and no meaning. And I knew this is where I felt I could make a real contribution and give me those things. And I got through the academy. So that was my lesson.
I got to tell you, that's such a phenomenal analogy for the entrepreneurial adventurer, LaRae, because our businesses will be that coach sometimes, and you're like, I can't do one more thing. You have to. You have to find it within you to keep moving forward. It's so easy to just say, I give up, or cry uncle. So I'm so thrilled that you found it and you used it as a way to build your mental toughness. And entrepreneurs who are watching, I know you can resonate with what LaRae went through in the FBI. So LaRae, you had a wonderful career of 24 years with the FBI. How is it that you retired and then transitioned into becoming an entrepreneurial adventurer?
Well, that's a great question. And I did retire before it was mandatory. So I had reached an age where I was eligible. And I looked at myself, and I loved my job. I loved all 24 years. But I also knew I wanted to take that next step. And I really think that for most of us, that whole entrepreneurial journey is also a life journey. Because a lot of people, just like me, get involved in it, or start off in their 20s in a job that, sounded glamorous or sounded, fun or just lucrative or whatever. And they go for it. And at some point, when you're in your 20s and 30s, you're going gangbusters. I mean, you're right out of the gate, right? But a lot of us, we start into our 30s and maybe 40s, and we start looking, and those young 20-somethings are nipping at our heels, and we kind of run out of steam. And I tell you, if we don't have a job or a career that really gives us that value and that meaning that we really need, we're going to start losing that race. And I think that's where that whole midlife crisis sometimes comes in, or where we get to the point of like, this is what I really want to do. I've taken these years of learning and experience, and this is what I want to do with it. I want to start my own business. I want to be in control and make my own contribution. And all the things that we learn in life prepares us for this entrepreneurial journey, I think.
Oh, I agree wholeheartedly. And just because we latch onto one career doesn't mean we have to stay there until we die. Where there's plenty for us to try and feel our way through. And yes, some careers, some job opportunities, some vocations really do require a younger body or perhaps a younger mind, because as we do evolve, as you were talking about, we do become a little more willful as to where we want to spend our time and our energy. And so I think that's a wonderful point. And actually, Michael Hyatt had a post today or yesterday about the fact that most entrepreneurs, the average age is over 40. How about that, LaRae?
I am not surprised at all. And I know that there are some young people that just, start off and they're wonderful entrepreneurials. But for most of us, it is a journey. And I'm not surprised at all. In fact, that makes perfect sense for me. And, back in the day, back in my parents' day, people went to work for a company and stayed for 30 years and retired with the gold watch. I mean, right? But people don't do that anymore. And I love the way that business is evolving and the way that we're encouraging one another and sharing the tools to get out there and say, I've loved what I've done this far, but this is simply preparing me for something more, that next step. And that's where I feel mental toughness often comes in, that you need to have the confidence in yourself that you can take the next step.
I love that. Okay, folks, is this Andelicious advice or what that LaRae's giving us? I mean, amazing. I'm so thrilled. You can find out all of LaRae's deliciousness at her website. That's LaRaeQuy.com. Very easy to go to. So now let's talk about the transition that you made. You came out and you wrote this wonderful book, Secrets of a Strong Mind, and you set up a coaching practice. What compelled you to do both?
I really felt it was important for me to write the book to clarify exactly what was important for me. And as I wrote each chapter, there were just certain elements that would pop out at me. And you know when something speaks to your heart. And so I started actually the book off with values and sort of an emotional intelligence approach, because no one would ever accuse the FBI of being touchy-feely, right? But the irony is that those agents who do their job best are those who understand themselves, so they know how to handle themselves when they find themselves in situations where they can't predict the outcome, and also who can understand the emotions of others. Because we need to get people to cooperate. Despite what you see in the movies or read in the books, interviews, face-to-face interviews with people are still the best and most useful investigative tool we use. And to do that, you need to get people to cooperate. You need to understand where they're coming from. So the whole understanding of where, what makes people tick, their emotional intelligence is essential for mental toughness, because you have to be able to manage yourself and others.
Well, and it sounds like you have to be able to connect so that someone does reveal the truth to you and what's going on, yes?
Absolutely, that's so important. And it's just pulling back the layers until you get to the truth.
But what I couldn't get over from your book and watching you over the years, LaRae, is I didn't really get the positive attitude and positivity practice that the FBI incorporates.
It's so important. And it's the FBI, it's special forces, SEAL teams, and I think a lot of people mistake optimism for positive thinking. And they're different. They're two very different things. And I have a lot of friends who are optimists, and I love them dearly. But do I have time to tell a short story?
Yes, of course.
Short. Admiral James Stockwell was held as a prisoner in Vietnam for 7 years, and he was tortured something like 22 times. When he was rescued, they asked him, they said, well, who didn't survive? And he said, oh, that's easy. It was the optimists. He said they were the ones who would say, oh, keep up your spirit, we'll be out by Christmas. And then Christmas would come and go. And then they'd say, keep up your spirits, we'll be out by Easter. And Easter would come and go. And he said they just basically died of a broken heart. He said the people who survived were the positive thinkers. In other words, they were the ones who believed that they would prevail in their circumstances rather than believing their circumstances would change. That is mental toughness. And so they were the ones who believed that were just, instead of moaning that the fact they didn't have an arm, they were just grateful they had 2 legs. Or, I mean, so that's the difference. You find, and you have to hunt. You have to hunt the good stuff. That's the secret to positive thinking.
Oh my gosh, I love where you're going here. Let's just take a few minutes to bring in some comments because we have a wonderful live group of participants. Thank you, everybody. So grateful that you're here. But let's bring in Neil Brown, who says, knowing the self and knowing others, can these skills be learned? What do you think about that, LaRae?
Absolutely. They absolutely can be learned. And there are 2 different questions, because when you learn about yourself, it's a lot of introspection. And it's not being afraid to go to the negative emotions. A lot of us are so afraid to do that. You know, we focus on just, you know, positive things, and that's good. But to be truly emotionally intelligent about ourselves, we have to be able to confront the negative as well as the positive. Not to dwell on the negative, but to know when it can sabotage you, because that's the mental toughness. You understand it, you can control it, you can keep it from sabotaging you.
Well, and folks, and LaRae, my husband and I went through a very difficult time about 1.5 years ago, and it was we put to work your mental toughness. We figured after the event we can maybe collapse. And it wasn't that we were afraid of what we were going through. We embraced it. We looked at our fears, put our arms around them, and we said, let's do our mental toughness today to get through this. And we had the best outcome, everybody. It was really wonderful.
Oh, that's a wonderful. Thank you for sharing that story, Andy. That's fantastic. But again, it's not wallowing in it. It's understanding it so you can control it. And then also the second thing about learning, as Neil's question was, about learning emotional intelligence about others, or you know, understanding them. It means you have to take the focus away from yourself, and that's where ego struggles a little bit, you know, where you'd rather just focus on yourself, but you actually have to put others first, and you have to think and put yourself in their shoes, and you have to work at it.
Well, that's an even more important ingredient, because as Renee Brown showed us, it's empathy. So I just have a whole new respect for the SEALs and the Special Forces and FBI and everyone out there, because you're right, to really put ourselves in the shoes of that person, we have to tap into our empathy, right, LaRae?
Absolutely, that's exactly. And in fact, empathy is one of the components of emotional intelligence. And if you don't have empathy, and you don't have the ability to sympathize, to understand with another person different from you, then you're not emotionally intelligent. And so that does mean you have to pull yourself away from you.
Right, right. Okay, I'm going to bring in a few more comments. Danielle Miller, the work of work is vastly different. I think we are more interested in legacy, impact, and making a contribution. That's what keeps us engaged in life. Wow, Danielle, I never... Right?
Yes, that's brilliant.
And then we have Lynn Sanders. I love the idea of clarifying what is important to you by writing it out, LaRae. You tapped into your inner wisdom. Woohoo! Love that inner wisdom. Yay, yay, yay. There's so many great comments, everybody. Thank you for sharing. So this is amazing. So you actually got trained to do that, and now that's what you do with others, LaRae.
It is, and I'm actually in the process now of getting some training modules out there for folks, and I'm working as a consultant and as a coach with companies and other people. So I love that, and I love. I think it was Danielle who said, you know, if you're engaged with others and you have value and feel that you've made an impact, on someone's life, there isn't a better feeling in the world.
Absolutely. And I don't know about you viewers, but I'm going to raise my hand to this. How many of you feel great during the day, but then at 2 or 3 in the morning, those fears come raising their heads? I know I start every day off feeling wonderful and confident and inspired thanks to my coffee, and I get through the day just fine. But how do we manage those middle of the night fears that wake us up? They're not reasonable. They're not logical fears. LaRae, how do we handle those, and especially as entrepreneurs?
Well, absolutely. And I have found that probably the biggest thing that keeps people from moving forward are self-limiting beliefs. And no matter where we are in life, and how successful we are, and we come to that next step, and we're thinking, can I do this? Or why isn't it happening as fast as it could happen? Or what am I doing wrong? I mean, we start second guessing ourselves. And self-limiting beliefs, I believe, are the biggest barrier any entrepreneurial enterprise will confront as they move forward. And that, as I ask people, and I suggest that people take a hard look at neuroscience, like the hard-nosed neuroscience, to really look at the way the brain functions. Because our brain, if we have this self-limiting belief about what we can do, our brain will actually keep us from doing it subconsciously. It will actually keep us from moving forward. And so this attitude about, yes, we can do it, has to be real. And you have to genuinely feel that. Because if you're not, you can't trick that brain. That brain is so smart that it'll keep.
Absolutely. And I know that a lot of times our brain will want to focus on the past. And we ain't going that way, are we, LaRae?
No, we're not. And I'll tell you something, too. And again, this is something that I hope the viewers and the entrepreneurs out there remember and read up on. And it's called a reticular activation system, RAS. But it's a way that your brain stores information. Because there's just so much coming at us all the time that it has to figure out what to sift out. And so what it will do is it will remember, your brain will remember the experiences that are most important to you. So if you have a self-limiting belief, for example, about what you can do, and you remember an incident or a conversation, it is only those things that confirm your bias that it remembers. I mean, so always go back and try to get more information about a conversation or an incident. But if that's what you're really thinking, that's what your brain is going to remember. So again, changing the way you think about yourself and your capabilities is absolutely the first step.
And this is why we need coaches, folks, just like you do to really get on that treadmill or really do those weights or really lose the weight.
Yes.
You need a coach for your brain, right, LaRae?
Absolutely, because you need somebody there reminding you and telling you what you can do and helping you break through those barriers, whatever. I mean, there are obviously roadblocks we're going to face in life. We didn't expect this obstacle to drop in front of us. That's not a self-limiting belief. But the way you get around it may require you to break another obstacle, another type of belief you have about what you can or cannot do. So yeah, I believe in having coaches, people around you who believe in you. I think the people you associate with are so important, because if they don't encourage you, if they don't believe in you, you're not going to believe in you. Right?
And what I love is that you demystify the whole mental toughness. This is not something you're born with just because you happen to have a great DNA package. It's something you can learn, right?
It absolutely is. It has nothing to do with what what you were born with or your circumstances. No matter where you are in life, developing a strong mind, building a strong mind and mental toughness is something you can do. and I hopefully I will give you the tools to do that if you read my books or come and just follow me on Twitter or whatever. And it's not that I'm trying to make a lot of money from this either. I mean, that's not even my goal. Like Danielle referred to, it's just making an impact and helping people realize their dreams and realize a lot of it is that it's just themselves. Once they can control the way they think about themselves and their own ability, they'd be amazed at what they can do.
Yeah, I'm thinking about different examples that entrepreneurs can run into because, a lot of times you do have to step back and say, you know what, it's not going to happen. I mean, everybody knows my story with my food manufacturing business. The margin disappeared because of the cost rising so fast. And then, of course, my manufacturing and packaging plant got hit by lightning. But that didn't stop me from being an entrepreneur. It just stopped me from being an entrepreneur with that adventure. And
well, I've had several examples. I say look at every situation, roadblock, as an investigation. Rarely do we, as an FBI agent, take a case and say this is how we're going to solve it, because you don't know. You have to go at it from every degree, all the way around, and look for how to approach it. And this is the other thing. You don't tell parents whose child has been kidnapped, this may be too hard a case to solve. I don't think I can do it. You don't do that. You solve the case. And so a lot of times, Andy, what that means is you have to change the approach. For example, I originally thought when I retired I was going to write a novel. Everyone said, "Oh, you were a counterintelligence agent. You should write a spy novel." And I said, "Yeah, I want to write, so I guess it will be a novel, right?" It was horrible. Nobody wanted to read it. And I realized, okay, I understand I want to write, but maybe it's not going to be a novel. And that's how Secrets of a Strong Mind was born. It was like, okay, let me write about what I really know about as LaRae, not as some fictional character. And so there's a situation a little bit like yours, Andy, where it didn't turn out the way I thought. In my heart, I knew I wanted to write. I just had it wrong. I had the type of book wrong.
That's a great story. I love that. And I'm so glad you chose to write Secrets of a Strong Mind. I mean, folks, this is some of the things that LaRae talks about in the book. Saying no to your self-limiting beliefs, as she mentioned, rewiring your brain for new patterns of behavior, empowering yourself, which is the opposite of helplessness, cultivating the attitude of positivity, not just optimism, and surrounding yourself with people who build you up. We haven't talked about that one. LaRae, what do you have to say about that?
I'm a big believer in being nice to everybody, but being very choosy about who you really spend time with. And it doesn't mean I think some people are better than or less than. It just means I'm very picky about choosing people that I know will challenge me in a good way, support me, and offer me those words of encouragement that I sometimes need. That we all need a board of advisors, I mean, a personal board of advisors, and those are people who bring different strengths to our situation, to who we are as people growing. For me, it's spiritual. I want to make sure that there's somebody around me who's going to challenge me spiritually. Also, career-wise, somebody who's around who can help me see that, okay, this is not working. Don't waste time on that. Instead, shift it. Keep moving until you find, again, like that investigation, until you find the right angle, the right approach. And sometimes that means circling a little bit. But I think it was Plato. I can't remember. Somebody said people are like dirt. They either help you grow or they don't. And so that's my.
I love that. And then the final thing you talk about is leading from the heart. What does that mean?
Oh, it's essential. Again, it gets right back to where our conversation started. If your heart is not in it, let me just say, okay, going back to the whole failure thing about these push-ups and having a tough time at the academy, most people, a lot of people, will simply run up to failure and they quit, right? And then they keep going. and try something new and different, and they keep going until they finally succeed at something, right? And that's where they stop, at success. But it's a success that comes from mediocrity. It's a success that comes from where you're just stopping to where you stumbled onto success. It's not pushing yourself to keep going to that next step. And if your heart is not in it, you're going to be on that treadmill that we were just talking about without being able to find a way to get off. So, and again, that's going to be one of the things that will lead you to just happy to. So I think that might be me. Is there something clicking?
We're all good over here. I'm going to bring up a few. Were you complete on that? Because I don't want you to interrupt that.
No, that's fine. There was something that clicked on this end, and I turned it off, so I'm sorry. No.
No worries. We're going to pull up a few more comments from our wonderful crowd of participants today. Deborah Oakland says, kick self-limiting beliefs to the curb. Feel with a deep sense of knowingness that you will overcome. I love that, Deborah Oakland. Love it, love it, love it. And I think I have another great comment here with Nikki. I think going through challenging situations, however uncomfortable at the time, actually gives you mental toughness as you learn the skills to deal with them. Oh my gosh, what do you think about that, LaRae?
She's absolutely right. That was a great comment. And I apologize for the sound that may be coming through here.
That's okay. No worries. No worries. I think that for me on the entrepreneurial adventure, it has always been about making it through the failures to get to the next level. I think our good friend Blair Glazer mentioned in a recent post, right, that the entrepreneurial adventure is the new therapy. I mean, what we learn from the skill sets that we have and that we acquire from this are phenomenal. LaRae, what do you love best about your work?
I love being able to make an impact on people's lives. For me, it's so important to be able to just look them in the eye and see that they've gotten something from what we've talked about, or that a little light bulb. You know, that little light bulb that comes on when somebody really understands what you're saying or really just gets it. And so that, to me, that's the most important thing.
Absolutely, and I think too what's so fascinating about you is that you come with 24 years of training on skill sets that we all need as entrepreneurs from an unusual source, the FBI. I mean, for most of us, that's an unusual source, and I think it adds a lot of credibility to what you do. Has that been your experience?
Oh, absolutely, because I've lived it, and I can actually share with people what it means, what it feels like to go through some very terrifying situations. And I found myself in many terrifying situations. And I don't know how much time we have to talk, but I mean, I've been in an undercover situation where I was accompanying another undercover agent, right? And I was sort of the arm charm, the girlfriend or whatever. And we entered this group of organized crime folks. I mean, they'd invite us to a barbecue, and so I was there. They took my handbag. I went outside, and it was hot. It was in Phoenix. I had to go in and get some sunscreen, and I found two women going through my handbag, and then three men followed me in and closed the door. And it was this bedroom that they kind of converted into like a family room or whatever. And I knew I was in trouble. I knew I was in serious trouble. I was as scared as I've ever been in my life, because these were extortionists, kidnappers, and occasionally murderers. And so they started questioning about why I was there and what was going on and who was that guy I was with. And he was the undercover agent. I was just the arm charm, right? And so I knew I was as terrified as I've ever been in my life. And I knew if I was to get out of that room untouched and unhurt, I needed to change the game. And so I just said, hey, I answered every question as honestly as I could. I told him about growing up on a cattle ranch in Wyoming. I told him I loved dogs and horses, and I was as honest with them about who I was, except for my name. That's the only thing I never told them was my true name. And I made it out of that room alive. The guy I went with, they had made him. They knew that he was not who he said he was, and they put a hit out on him. So he was transferred. The FBI transferred him immediately. But the point is, and I worked a lot of undercover cases, the only time I ever got into real trouble was when I tried to be somebody I was not. Because you can slap on any name or any title you want, but you have to be authentic. You need to be true to who you are and your values and your belief system. And that's what made me successful as an undercover agent, because the name isn't important, really. It's not important. It's who you are. And I get to that emotional intelligence that we were talking about earlier, being able to relate to people, being able to connect with them. And the only way you can do that is by being authentic, because when you're authentic, you're transparent. And when you're transparent, you're honest.
And you can connect better. Oh my gosh, I'm so glad you made it out alive. And the other guy did too. I was on the edge of my seat running my nails.
Yeah, I put in a few anxious moments there. I will admit, in that situation.
Oh my gosh, LaRae. Well, we could go on forever with your stories, but what's new? What are the possibilities happening for your business now?
I am really excited because I'm going to be offering another training program that, and this one will be offered online. It will be an 8-week course, 24 sessions, and we'll be going into things like, how to be savvy with emotional intelligence, why leading from your heart is so important for mental toughness, how to win your struggles, how to work through adversity and risk and things like that. So I'm going to be offering that, and I'll be offering some special deals, I think, for people who connect with me and express an interest in wanting to pursue that. So I'm excited about that.
That sounds very exciting, and I know you have a wonderful book out there for women and men leaders. 52? Share the name for that.
Yes, Mental Toughness for Women Leaders. It's 52 tips to recognize and utilize your greatest strengths. And I marketed it towards women, but I'll have to tell you honestly, I think women, the name is mentioned 5 times. It's a book for people. It's a book for leaders, entrepreneurs, anybody who's going through a situation where they really are needing to find that mental toughness to get through where they are right now. So, so those are my 2 books.
I love that. Oh my gosh. LaRae, this is when I do a quick shout out to the folks that were unable to watch live, but they stopped by in the comment thread to say hi, that they'd be watching the replay. So I love to blow them kisses. So Carmen, mwah, and Kate Nasser, whom we both love and adore, and Ali Paulin, which we both love and adore, and Cheryl, and Christopher Pearsall, and others. Thank you so much for watching the replay. And my live viewers, oh, geez, you brought such great energy, such great comments today. Oh, my gosh. Thank you, thank you, thank you for joining LaRae and I live. There's nothing like the cinematic tension of a live show. Right, LaRae?
Yes, and my magical number thing that kept popping up, and I have no idea what that was about. I do apologize for that.
No worries. Any last thoughts that you'd like to share with folks who are watching about mental toughness, about emotional intelligence, and your work?
Well, thank you, Andy. I would love to connect with folks who are listening to you right now and start the conversation going about how they can become more mentally tough. Please feel free to email me and connect with me however, and I answer my emails, so would love to connect with everybody who's listening.
And you can find her at Twitter at LaRae Quy, and here on Google+. I'll have all the links in the archives, folks. And for those of you who tuned in, please know how grateful I am that you took the time out of your day, out of your busy entrepreneurial life to watch this show. It really means a lot to me. And next week, that's April 7th at 1 p.m. right here on Google+, 1 p.m. Eastern, that is. I have a phenomenal guy coming on board. His name is C.C. Chapman. He co-wrote the book, Content Rules, and he has an amazing viewpoint on the world of social media and on the world of marketing. And I have to tell you, this is one unique character I am so excited to share with you all. So that's next Tuesday, April 7th at 1 p.m. Eastern. Thank you, LaRae, for tuning in and joining me as a guest, a phenomenal guest today.
Thank you, Andy. It's been so fun.
And everybody, come on, hop in the green room and chat with us. It's a wonderful opportunity to meet other entrepreneurs, to meet me, to meet LaRae, and hear more of her wonderful stories. I'm going to take the link from this room as soon as I hit end broadcast and put it in the comment stream. So I hope we see you there. In the meantime, to all of you, thank you for having the mental toughness and the emotional intelligence and the courage to pursue your entrepreneurial dreams. I am in awe and wonder of you and cheering you on from here. Thank you for tuning into the Possibility Partners Show. Mwah! Wishing you an Andelicious day. Bye-bye.